Welcome to the bold analysis. Political observers warned Sabina Chege and Kanini faction that they were literally being used by political operatives to fight wars that they could not win and to start a war that really did not belong to them. You may want to sympathize with them, but again, sometimes people need to learn the hard way. What am I talking about? I'm seeing a story circulating here about how it has been written to come out of Azimio la Umoja. But I want to share with you a raft of some very interesting developments around the whole Jubilee tussle that will open a lid into what exactly it is. And that is why I'm saying that it is just a matter of when, not if, that move, even that hot water will always come cold and they will be betrayed and dumped. Technically, they were being used for some political motives. We're just receiving this information that the last time the Kanini faction went to Jubilee headquarters, they had to go there with a contingent of police officers to access the building, the offices. And by that time, Kanini team were there. They didn't make their way, but ever since, I think Uhuru Kenyatta came out, the very day Uhuru Kenyatta came out, in defending the party, and the team vanished. So one of the reasons why they brought that mayhem was to create the scene there, and things did not go well. So we understand that they have been trying to access the Jubilee Party premise there, and they're blocked. That the person holding the keys and holding everything to the Jubilee Party offices is actually the Kanini faction. An attempt also to take, I think, the social media page also failed, because that's also the model of communication. That's why you see Kanini posting a lot of stuff in his social media pages. So these efforts to access the party offices, party premise, has been blocked. And they can only access that through the police, but that has also not been aided. Now, remember the landlord, when that mayhem happened, the landlord came and even confronted Uhuru Kenyatta that he was thinking they should leave that place because it was bringing chaos, but it's also a place where other people are just saying the residential houses are also there. So they have been behind the scene push by the deep state, pushing the landlord to eject the Jubilee Party from that place ever since, from the Lavington premise. But that also has not come to fruition. They've been trying to making sure that, in fact, those reports are even saying that they've even been saying that they will be willing to compensate him for the losses that might be accrued, but forcefully just to eject these fellows there, so that either the new management, the office might still be taken by the new office, by the Kega faction. But the Kega faction were also planning to establish a new office, preferably to be funded. But that seems also not to be coming to fruition. The faction that they are calling themselves the legitimate owners of the party, the Kanini faction, do not have an office. There was an alternative, a mooted plan for them to get some alternative office somewhere, but that has not been given because of the funding. Remember, the whole thing about dethrowing the Kanini faction was to take over even the party funds. And that's why if you look at the strategic people that were ejected from office, the Secretary General, even attempt of the party leader, I don't know how you even eject the party leader, and the vice chair, and I think the head of finance, the treasurer or something, it was to target the party accounts. And if they could access the party accounts, then easily they will access the funds and using those funds, they will then get out and maybe get new office. But that has not been there. Remember, the Jubilee Party is also, the account is could be still huge because they did do a lot of activities last year. In the last year, even though there were submissions that were taken there, that being done there by the members of parliament, even those who had then alleging support and already supporting William Ruto. Now, I want to make another political observation. That takeover was is a team. They're posting themselves as the legitimate members, and they're now supporting William Ruto. The affiliate parties in Kenya Kwanza, the ANC and Ford Kenya, are currently on a serious mobilization drive in the Western, and there is the other party, this other party from the Northeastern that was in Azimio la Umoja, I think I've forgotten the name, is also on some registration drive. So this team, and Jubilee is now traversing parts of Nakuru and central Kenya in trying to popularize, or rather try to speak to the public about their minds on the finance bill. But what the plans were that the Sabina Chege faction will also run parallel mobilization drives inconsistent with what the other parties are doing. But that is not happening. Anyone else, any other party, every other party within Kenya Kwanza is allegedly getting a good funding to run registration drives and getting the support, but with them, that cannot be effected. Remember, they're still paying the subscription, the monthly deduction to the Jubilee Party, and has to be sent to the Jubilee Party, and that party then is being used, that money is being used to run the party. So they've also been technically locked out on that ground. Another observation that happened is when Sabina Chege was confronted in the floor of the House by the Azimio team, I understand he was around with quite a number of Jubilee members of parliament. Not a single press conference has been done by either UDA or Jubilee in respect to what was said as Sabina Chege attack. They've fabricated the stories to an extent of saying her iPhone was stolen, and also saying another thing apart from iPhone, I don't know, he was beaten or something, and until he injured hand, and she's been trying to posture, trying to draw some sympathy. I understand that even in the floor of House, the Jubilee members of parliament that were actually around him, they never appeared. There is no single press briefing that has been called, either by even the Kanini and the Jubilee faction, to show solidarity with him. Neither the women caucus at the UDA. In Murang'a County, where she comes, there is what is called Kewopa. I think it's a women caucus bringing Betty Maina and the Maua member of parliament. So these members of parliament were already in some sort of a scuffle with MCS of Murang'a County. And those MCS were challenging Betty Maina that if, I think it's, they're doing some movement known as Women First, or rather championing for the rights of women, I think in Mount Kenya. And so the Murang'a MCS were challenging Kina Betty Maina that if you're interested in the rights of women, then you need to protect one of your own, Sabina Chege. But even that Murang'a caucus, where she comes from, do not and did not support her to any extent. I remember, of course, I understand the Betty Maina team was so consistent, and they've been saying that Uhuru Kenyatta deserves the respect. The same way Kanini Kege and Sabina Chege got their support when they needed to get their positions in the EALA and this one, the National Assembly, even the whip, they should also accord respect to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, because William Ruto is not disrespecting Gideon Moi, despite the fact that politically they were not walking the same path. So they have been saying that Sabina Chege has been disrespecting Uhuru Kenyatta. So even from the Mount Kenya caucus, not even the women, even the Mount Kenya team, they've not called, and to their expectation is that Sabina Chege was going to blow that confrontation out of proportion and to that extent tried to draw some attention on her end, but that has failed. Saying that even UDA members of parliament did not coalesce around Sabina Chege. And the truth, sometimes it's just sometimes good to say the truth. Even if you were to support Sabina Chege faction, support Sabina Chege and Kanini, you can just see that this is something that is this is a move that is headless. It doesn't make a lot of sense. There is no way Sabina Chege can dethrone Uhuru Kenyatta as a party leader. You can't. It is just a matter of using your connections to the system to stage manage this thing, and it doesn't have a clout. Honestly, do you want to tell me that Jubilee is going to rival UDA, and will the UDA members of parliament that are now in the ground will comfortably then absorb Jubilee party? What will be their stake? So something is simply not adding up. And the UDA women, allegedly caucus was supposed to push this narrative, but it seems it has not been there. There are three reasons why I can tell you that William Ruto is simply dumping these fellows. Number one, I think the whole thing was to push Uhuru Kenyatta out of politics. And the reason why this was being done, I remember when the reason why Uhuru Kenyatta withdrew from Twitter was after, I think he's also someone who has, as a person also, they were taking advantage that he's a man who do not want to be dragged into such kind of wars. And I remember there was a time the president was I think Uhuru Kenyatta went to Angola, and he made some statement in respect to his relationship with Uhuru Kenyatta with William Ruto, but that was taken out of proportion. So when he came back in the country, he deactivated his Twitter accounts. As I remember, by that time, Dennis Setumbo was still working for him, and there are a lot of what he will say will spin, and he got really annoyed by the way the Twitter was reacting to that question. So they knew, and William Ruto was actually targeting that. The more they would push Uhuru to the corner, Uhuru was going to move out of active politics. And that was a strategy to eject him. But reviewing at his stand in the last NDC, when he made that public appearance that saying, tafuteni mtu wa kutisha, not me, not Uhuru, the son of Jomo Kenyatta. Now, that means that mission backfired. And the more they will be pushing this on Uhuru Kenyatta, they're still going to increase his profile. And of course, they're giving him a lot of visibility, probably even attracting some sympathy around him that is being mistreated. And some of these people, they rode on a very false narrative that they are being mistreated. So if you do the same to a former president, you might also fall in the same trap. So that's what's happening, that Uhuru's stand to remain in politics seems to have taken people back to the drawing board, that if that was the intention, then we are not going to achieve it that way. Number two, the Jubilee tussle faction between the Sabina Chege faction and the Jeremiah Kioni is giving that party visibility. And that's why today I saw them going to the ground, and I was like, yes, that's what this country, that is what I've always, if I was their strategist, that's what I would always say. In the light of all this, you go and interact with the people. So they were in some parts of Mount Kenya. The reason why they're getting some bit of that visibility is because of what William Ruto, the kind of tussle that William Ruto is engineering there. They're trying to bring back the visibility of the party, despite the fact that they say that what was remaining there is the shell of the party. I think it's getting its way. The other third thing is the Sabina Chege protection squad, the protection strategy is clearly a breach of the law, and the country is staring at it. How a fake court order is procured and taken to the parliament and not even served to Azimio la Umoja, and then it is being used to, Sabina Chege is using it to cling so that she does not leave that position, is something that has to be understood clearly. And that is why I can say that the country is getting the logic that there is no way, even Sabina Chege ardent supporter cannot be convinced that she wants to be a chief whip on the minority side, and clearly convince us that she's doing her role as a chief whip in the minority side while she's working in the majority side. So this is something that I think is in black and white, and it's just a matter of seeing and being reasonable with the Kenyan people. And that is why the president is also looking at it and say, like, okay, as much as I want to protect you, but it's not viable and it's not practical. It's a matter of wait and see. I saw them writing a letter to break away from Azimio Umoja. Okay, these fellows, I'm even wondering, is it a blow? They should leave. They're not even in it. Is it just about the letter? Because they've never attended any event here as Azimio Umoja. They're not in this press briefing. In any activity of Azimio Umoja, they're not there. So even if they write a letter and they break away from the Azimio Umoja, then to what value do Azimio Umoja lose? What is Azimio Umoja losing by these fellows leaving? Because even they have not been there. So is it just about living on paper? You know, it simply doesn't add up. And that's why I see that this is a mission that has come to its logical conclusion. Let's meet in the next.